Good morning and welcome to our 2019 Paths to Professionalism event. We are going to start this morning with invocation from Pastor Melissa.
It's nice to see you bright and early this morning. Thank you for being here. So Rabbi Abraham Heschel has written that our goal is to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Takes nothing for granted. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. I think the rabbi is right. The gift of life is very sacred and holy. And I suspect that you, certainly like me, feel this in a new, profound way after the twin tragedies of the fall, the borderline shootings and the enveloping fire. I'm very mindful of that myself, as my husband had a mild heart attack a month ago. And so, boy, am I really savoring each day and treating it as a gift? Absolutely. And I like what he says, take nothing for granted. I think that's another way of saying don't waste the day. Use our energies and our attitudes and our gratitude to put things into practice about the way we want the world to be. And so we're going to contribute to the common good, and we're going to have civil discourse with each other, and we're going to try at all times to really love, respect, and honor this sacred gift of life that we have. May the way you live this day propel you fully into this day and equip you and fuel you for all your futures. Would you pause and pray with me? Thank you, loving and tending God, for giving us the sacred gift of life as we stand at the opening of this day. Give us strength and compassion to do all the things where our wills and our passions and our talents lead us into this day. We are going to need a lot of muscle and gutsy intentionality to do all these things. So I ask that you would bless us and give us one more thing. Give us grateful hearts for the blessing of this day. Amen. Enjoy the morning, enjoy your meal, enjoy your conversation. Let me introduce our president, Chris Kimball.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everybody. Oh, come on. A little better. Sun's out. It's a beautiful day. It's wonderful to have you all here. I want to give thanks to the School of Management for putting on this program. Cal Lutheran talks about finding your purpose. Some of you came here knowing what it was. Others of you have discovered it while here. All of you will live it out after you graduate and go into the careers, the works, the professions that you choose, and there will probably be more than one for many of you. Some of those professions are long established, have rules, codes, behaviors that are expected. It's good to learn those before you enter it. Other professions haven't even been developed yet. We don't know what they're going to be, and they too will develop their own codes, behaviors, expectations. So understanding yourself as a professional and what that means is crucial no matter where your path takes you. And that's why it's wonderful that the School of Management sponsors this event and has now done it 3 years. Is this the third? Fifth? Okay, I'm behind as usual. Getting old, I guess. To make this a regular part of the offerings that the school provides you is really a great thing. And I also want to applaud all of you students for being here, for getting up and coming to learn, understanding that this is indeed part of your path to professionalism. And I also want to thank the panelists for being here, all three of them, taking their time to share their wisdom with you. It's a great gift to have each of them here. You'll learn more about them in a minute from Dr. Guerrero. I also just want to note that for the School of Management, this is a pretty exciting time. New programs that are out there, including hospitality and tourism management, led by Dr. Cosentino. Is Stefan still? There he is. Stand up, say hello. I just give him a round of applause. He's still a newbie. I just had the honor of traveling to a couple of cities in Asia with him and a couple other members from the School of Management, exploring possibilities for partnerships, exchanges, et cetera, for the hospitality program, and it's exciting to think of what that's going to do. And there are some of us that hope before long sports management emerges as a major in the school, along with lots of other things that are coming down. But of course, the biggest news for the school is that we are busy raising money for a building that will finally provide a home for the School of Management, one that is made possible by a significant lead gift from our neighbor, Mr. Steve Dorfman, a retired Hughes executive. He was supposed to be here. Steve, are you in the room this morning? Not yet. He'll probably be on his way. His connection to the university and to the School of Management in particular came not because he'd known CLU for years, not because he was an alum. None of those things are true. He ended up living across the street at University Village, Thousand Oaks, and then took time to get to know us, get to know the school, which means he would not have been here. We would not have this transformative gift if it were not for Warren Speaker and University Village, Thousand Oaks. So thank you for that to Warren. As people thought, the addition of UVTO to our community and to the university has been a huge asset. So I wanted to add that thank you and that note the significant future for the school that Mr. Dorfman has kicked off. So with that, let me turn things back over to Dr. Guerrero and wish you all a terrific morning. I know you're going to learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, President Kimball. As you know in the agenda this morning, I'm going to briefly introduce our three panelists and ask them to answer two questions that we have already prepared. And then we will open up to questions from the floor. We will have two individuals on either side of the room with microphones. We just ask that you raise your hand and not ask the question until we bring the microphone over to you, because we are recording and we want to make sure we hear your question clearly. So with that, our first panelist is Warren Speaker. He's a managing partner for Continuing Life. Continuing Life provides business services and support for continuing care retirement communities in California, including Morningside of Fullerton, La Costa Glen, Carlsbad, University Village here in Thousand Oaks, and Stone Ridge Creek in Pleasanton. All these communities are over 95% occupied with high resident satisfaction ratings. The company is assisting in the 2019 opening of Rieta Glen San Juan Capistrano and the Glen at Scripps Ranch that will provide support for those communities. Continuing Life is ranked number 19 in the Fortune magazine's 50 best places to work in aging services. Mr. Speaker joined Continuing Life Communities in 2001 and previously held sales and marketing, community startup, and vice president roles before becoming managing partner in 2013. Prior to transitioning to senior housing, he worked for the investment bank Alex Brown and Sons in the San Francisco office. He serves on the board of the UPO Coastal San Diego chapter and has served on the board of trustees for Francis Parker School and the Friends of Del Mar Parks. He lives in Del Mar with his wife Megan and their 4 sons. He received his master's degree in business administration from the Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University, where he coached the women's rugby team for the national championship. He received his Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of California at Berkeley, where he played rugby. Welcome, Warren. Karen Boublis is a founder and principal consultant for HR Business Solutionz. She is a human resource expert known for her honest and trusted appraisal of workplace situations and personalization of the human resource experience for each of her clients. Karen served as the Executive VP of Human Resources for Dataset Digital Entertainment, where she directed all aspects of the human resources, including leadership development, creation of policies, and payroll management. She was the director of the Human Resources for DTS, Inc., where she led the human resource efforts and business strategy acquisitions and mergers. In addition, Karen has held human resource development and executive management positions with prestigious national organizations, including Intel, Zircom, Price Pfister, and Valley Presbyterian Hospital. She's a certified senior professional in HR, a senior certified SHRM senior certified professional, and is a board member for the Southern California Professionals in Human Resources Association, PIRA. and a member of the Society for Human Resources Management. She volunteers for PIRA and SHRM, supporting students studying in the field of human resources. Karen is also a volunteer speaker and consultant for the Women's Economic Ventures of Ventura and Santa Barbara counties, and serves on the board for Habitat for Humanity in Ventura County. Thank you and welcome, Karen. Darrin Dickerson, our new panelist, is the Chief Financial Officer for Shield Healthcare, where he has extensive experience with inventory management, process redesign, internal controls, enterprise planning, acquisitions, and divestitures. Darrin also served as vice president at Harman International, where he stayed with the company for over 16 years. He started as a senior accountant in 1996. Prior to Harman, Darrin was an auditor for PricewaterhouseCoopers and has proven his ability to lead relationships with auditors, banks, board of directors, and other stakeholders. He currently volunteers and serves on the board of directors for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation's Los Angeles chapter. He has an MBA from University of Virginia Darden School of Business and a Bachelor's of Arts in English and a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from West Virginia University. Welcome, Darrin. So our first two questions, and we'll start on this side with Warren and then work our way across the table. Your top career highlight and or your toughest interview experience.
Can you hear me all? Okay. So my greatest career accomplishment was getting my wife to marry me. Now I will actually talk about business, but I will just say many of you in this room will get married. It took me 8 years for my wife to go out with me. But finding a great partner makes business and everything so much easier. Over the time building University Village, which I'll talk about momentarily, my wife birthed 4 children, carried on a job, and while I was commuting up here and having it easy, she was taking care of everything. Find a good partner. Find somebody you love. Find somebody who's a good match and will help build you up. In short, marry up. I did. Now, as to my business, my greatest accomplishment is right across the street here at University Village, Thousand Oaks. Back in 2002 or 3, I can't remember, we started working on this. We were actually the third senior housing provider. 2 others dropped it because it's tough. The business is tough. But we started out working out one of your dorms off of Regent. That was my office. I did my interviews for jobs in Samuelson Chapel. And it was just a heck of an experience. It's a classic startup. We got to hire a lot of students here from CLU. I've got people like Ernie Sandlin, who was the former admissions director and nose guard here at CLU on the football team. He's now our head of marketing. Jeanette Ruggiero started out as HR director, has been promoted to AIT and now administrator. She'll probably be the executive director someday at University Village. And we've got great residents that live there. The people that have come from CLU, we have former professors like Jim Esme, folks like Ken Warkentine that work over there. I don't know if he was with CLU. We've made these people's lives better. And it's so satisfying to have done a successful business adventure where we've done well. We have a saying in our company, we can do well by doing good. And I think that part of the money from that sale, we bought this land from CLU, helped fund this building we're in right now. As Chris mentioned, one of our successful residents has donated the money that will be the future School of Management. And we've helped grow student careers, et cetera. So I feel privileged to have created a place where over 500 people can live with great peace of mind and age successfully. They clearly give back, and where we can help grow the careers of a lot of students and other folks who've launched with us and stayed with us for many time. We're big on promoting from within, and it's nice to see them grow. That's when you get to a certain point in your career. You're not quite there yet, but where you'll take more satisfaction in watching other people's careers grow than foster your own. And so it's an early in the process, but get ready, it's going to go quick.
All right, so I would say my top career highlight, aside from starting my own business, because that's just completely different. You're in every aspect of the business at that point rather than focusing in one particular area, and mine, obviously was human resources. One of the companies that I was working for was going through a lot of reorganization. It was one of the downturns in the economy. At the time, the business model was also changing. So they were restructuring, going into 2 different divisions, and one of the divisions was being sold off. Prior to that, we had to look at the workforce, and it came down, making it look more attractive for the sales, cutting the expenses, which meant we had to do a reduction in force, laying off a bunch of people, employees. And at that time, that company had never done a reduction in force. So the executive management team was very emotional about it, number one, but also it was a very, very hard decision, and they didn't know how to do it. I, in my career, had done it several times before, so I was the one that took the lead on that, and it was a rare and unique experience, to be in the position that I was, to lead the executive management team. We're talking the CEO, the president, the COO, and doing all of this. So it was successful as that could be. People understood the reasons why, which was very, very important. We gave them the support that they needed to land softly, and then to also build themselves back up and find their next adventure. But the highlight for me was that the executive management team thanked me and said they never could have done it without my help and support there. So that was one of my career highlights.
Okay. So my career highlights, so firstly it begins with just simply having a professional career. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, and I'm very proud of that. And I know probably many of you in the room find yourself in the same place, so congratulations. It's it's a tough road when it's not laid out for you. As Dr. Guerrero mentioned, one of my jobs, I spent 16 years with a company called Harman International. And I did lots of different things for Harman, and it's one thing that I'll talk about throughout the morning is the important thing about just kind of moving around and doing different stuff. And so I'd had many positions with Harman, starting with a senior accountant, which is basically the entry-level accounting position, and moved my way up through corporate. And then the company moved me to California. And that was basically leaving kind of corporate life and coming out to one of the operating companies that actually does stuff and is responsible for making money. And I was the vice president of finance for that company, JBL, the Speaker company. And thus far, because I think we should preface this by, most of us are still mid-career. Your careers are going to be long, and even though I'm approaching 50, I still got probably 15 years to go. And so thus far, it's that job because it was a culmination of just doing a lot of different things for the company, and then moving for the company. And I think too, in your careers, that's going to be really important to be open, to be mobile. Companies are looking for that, and hopefully we get into some of that as you ask us questions. I think we had a two-part question, right? Was we supposed to ask our toughest interview question?
Yeah, your toughest interview experience.
This is quick and easy for me, and it's my current position. I'm the CFO for a privately held company, and so I had to interview with the CEO, and so I was doing my research and looking up the company and the CEO, et cetera, and I was getting ready for all these questions that he was going to pose for me and how was I going to answer them, and et cetera. And I show up and we sit down, and he says to me, "Well, I have nothing. I have no questions for you. So what do you want to talk about?" And so it was on me for an hour to generate a conversation with who ultimately became my boss. But his kind of vetting was to kind of put that on me. Obviously, there was a bit of a shock value to it, and that was kind of a method to his madness. And so the lesson that I'd like to express to you guys is when you go into an interview, it's really more about the questions that you have. than the answers that you're prepared for. I think the answers are kind of easy. You're asking a question and, give it your best shot at answering it. I mean, it's what you've done in school. But to really come prepared with questions and curiosity about the organization that you may join, I think that's key.
One of my toughest interview experiences, I think, was very unique. It was a bank who's been acquired by others, and this was at the corporate office. And it was a pre-screen interview, so it was, with the recruiter in the human resources department. And he had nothing on his desk or the workspace here. We were behind bulletproof glass, and he sat there with his hands folded straight out like this, just asking the very rudimentary questions. Wasn't really prepared to answer my questions that I had. But basically the position was to be the liaison or the human resource support for all of the branches from San Diego all the way up to San Luis Obispo. And there were a lot of branches. And my question was, are you getting in front of the employee relations issues that are going with this? And is there time for that? Because that was a huge territory to be doing that. And he couldn't answer that question. I guess the thought was that the branch managers were doing that, but obviously to me, the branch managers didn't have the support they needed. So I summarized it in that it was a job where I would be going every day to a different branch to fire somebody, and knew that was not what I wanted to do, and going with that. So it was, pretty early in my career, but from that experience, what I had learned is know what you can do and what you want to do, and follow that, because that would have not fit, in that time in my life. I just had my baby was 6 months old, and there was no way. There was no way I was going to do that with the baby, but there was probably no way I was going to do that and, have every day of my work life being that. So I would encourage you definitely to know what you can do, what you're capable of doing, what you want to do with them.
I don't have any particularly unique interview experiences to share, so I'll just share with you a question I ask sometimes. I'm going to ask you. Are you smart or do you work hard? So I'd like a show of hands. All those who say, I'm smart, raise your hand, please. How would you answer it? Everybody has to answer. Okay, show of hands if the answer to the question of, are you smart or do you work hard? All those who say, I'm smart, raise your hand. Okay, one, thank you. Okay, there's a couple, good. Okay, then I'm expecting 100% raise hands then. All those who say I work hard. Okay, you made the right answer. That's what we're looking for. There is a right answer, and it's you work hard.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to start taking questions from the floor. We have Dr. Cosentino and Susan Wood, who have microphones on either side. So if you could just raise your hand if you have a question for the panelists.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for coming. I have a question for all three. So when you interact with other people, what are the best attributes you look for them? Maybe you could give me your top 3 attributes you find in other people, or you look for in other people.
Are you in an interview setting, or is it a social setting?
Social setting,
Social
when
setting?
you work with them, when you interact with them on the daily basis, per se.
Somebody who's curious, somebody who has that curiosity, that inquisitiveness, and that genuine interest in the interactions and the conversations that you have with it, and really is interested in the person, maybe their story and what's going on with it, but definitely the curiosity.
Actually, I was going to say curiosity as well, so I'll say that again because just to emphasize it, it's just something that I just truly believe in, and just folks coming to our company or the people that I work with. I mean, just being curious, and it's not just about what we're talking about right now or the job we're talking about now, but it's just many things in general. But also just to be transparent and have humility. One of the things that I've learned is when you're young and you start learning about business, and you kind of picture these like a pricing negotiation as being really hard-nosed, and your folks are on different sides of the table and growling at each other. And the truth is, it's really not like that, or it's not. That's not going to give you the best outcome. I mean, it's really best when you just kind of sit down and just be very transparent and just figure out, okay, here's what I need. What do you need? And just kind of work out a solution that way that benefits both parties. So I would say simply it's that, just being transparent, just be very humble. I mean, none of us are any better than the other. And like I said, curiosity is just huge for me.
Thank you.
I'll take it primarily from a hiring perspective. I'm looking for servant leaders. Everybody in this room can be a servant leader. You don't need to be the CEO to be a servant leader. So if you're answering questions and it comes up frequently that I helped this group do this, I helped so-and-so do this, or I was helping, it helped these folks do this, that's telling me that that's probably likely somebody who's going towards being a servant leader. When it's the I did this, I'm so great, probably not a great fit with us. So if I can find somebody who's a servant leader and then somebody who's looking to find a home, we've got a great match.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Chintan, and this is for all three of you. What are the top 5 skill set that you look as a recruiter in a person while recruiting, especially from a master's perspective, when some of us are pursuing our master's in administration or tech?
I'm not sure I have a whole lot to add besides that last one. We do go through at the higher levels, right? Not somebody who's doing entry level. We have a process that we go through for interviewing, and it's trying to needs match between what that person's accomplishments have been and what the needs are for the specific job. But again, I'm going to go back to the servant leadership. If this is somebody who is, helping others, right? There's otherwise known as givers and takers. In the short term, the takers may win. In the long term, the givers always do. And if you're a giver and you're looking to find a home, then we'll hire you at X level and we'll keep promoting you from within. We're big from promoting within. That's going to be a good match. If you're a taker, you may be good for a short period of time. You may be good for a project, but it's not going to be a good cultural match, so we're not looking for that. So servant leadership comes back in high.
I would probably just tag on to that. Leadership is very, very important. You may not have the title, you may not have the position, but there's definitely leadership skills in everything that you do. And that really works. That to me translates that you're working as a team, that you have aspirations, you see the big picture, and understand, where the vision is, where the target is, where the goals are. To get there and to be able to get everybody together working the same way. And that would be in any position that I see. So.
I'll just add, I know your question was about the technical skill set, and the truth is, right now as you embark on many of your first jobs, on paper you're going to look the same. I'm in the finance space, and you're going to be applying for accounting position, and your resume is going to read, I got my accounting degree and I got decent grades, and maybe I did a couple of things. So it really is fit. And what Warren was talking about, I mean, just your ability to lead at any level, I mean, that is something that we absolutely look for. And so again, just the technical skill set, it's very important. It gets you through the door. It's the way we take 500 resumes and get it down to 100 or what have you. It gets you through the door. But once you're through the door, it's really about how you present yourself and just to show that you're curious and can be a leader and a hard worker as well.
I'm actually going to interject with one question because this comes up every year. Can you tell us how you find work-life balance?
I'll start with that because I've renamed it work-life integration. You never feel like you're in balance. You're going to be heavy over on one side and, feel like you're neglecting another side at any time during your life. But it's the integration that you have and where it makes sense to where you keep your career aspirations and your career goals set and focused on that, but then you also have the same, and you give the same attention, to your personal life. So whether that's, family time, travel, your other interests that you have, your creativity side, make sure that you have time and put aside time for each side, because it is an integration. There's going to be times where you're going to be working at home, where you've got the chaos of home going on. There's going to be times where, a little bit of fun and creativity may come into your work life there. So it's an integration to me at this point. It just somehow balances out, but give the same focus, same attention on both sides. And I think you'll find a happy medium somewhere in there. But both sides are very, very important.
I agree, and I used to think about this a lot, how do you kind of balance the two? And I got to a point as well where it really is integrated. And thinking about your kind of what's ahead of you, your generation, I think actually you're going to be better at it than we were, because early career, excuse me, it was, work, life, keep them separate, keep them siloed. But already you're kind of used to, I got college age kids and I watch you guys do your homework, and you've got, Snapchat going on and doing your homework, and you're talking to your boyfriend or girlfriend. So you're already kind of used to having different things going on at the same time. And I think in a lot of ways that's really going to help you, get into your careers and realize how they can really kind of flow together. So congrats on having that. That's one up on us.
Our group works hard. We have an old saying, you've all heard it, work hard, play hard. What makes the work hard easier is if you love what you do. And I love what I do. So it's really easy to work hard because I'm having fun, I'm doing it. So make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not doing it for a paycheck, or otherwise it's gonna be very painful. A business school professor of mine gave great advice. He said, being an entrepreneur doesn't mean you can't have a family or a family life. But he says it may mean you work hard during the day, you come home for dinner with your family, and then you go back to work afterwards. That always resonated with me. And it's interesting, as I mentioned, for 10 years I used to commute from San Diego up here while my wife was raising our young children, by the way, and working. I had the easy job. And then as University Village became more successful, she started saying, hey, what about trying to, come home for family dinner, at 5:30, 5:30, 1, maybe 2 nights a week. Very gentle. And it's been great because you see how that has shifted. When they're young, it's not fun. It's torture, actually. Food's going everywhere, a lot of, spilled milks, et cetera. But the investment from that young age to where now our family dinners, which are basically 5 nights a week, because it's fun, and I also get to talk about business a little bit, and my kids are interested in it. So that integration is a great comment, Karen. But I'm very passionate about what I do. So I can work hard. I am home for dinner now. I've developed this routine. And I do actually go back to work a lot of times, not to the office, but get back on the computer and stuff like that afterwards, because I've got stuff to do and I like doing it. Now the golden rule my wife has helped us develop is there are absolutely no devices at the table. That also helps create some separation so there's not total integration.
Thank you. I know we had a couple other hands up for questions.
Hi, I'm Christy Douglas. I'm the hospitality faculty at Moore Park College and a CLU alum. Thank you guys for coming today. I always stress to my students the importance of having mentors and industry connections, people that are in the industry you want to work in, who you can look up to and refer to for information, context, all of that. When was there a point in your career where a mentor played a role in your success?
Truthfully, from the very beginning, and many mentors along the way, and I think actually there's a great follow-up question to the one before, because I think my mentors have just really shown me how to kind of have a life as well. I remember getting out of college, one of my first jobs, and my boss got me into cycling actually, and even started taking me out at lunchtime and teaching me how to ride a road bike and that kind of thing, and it's funny, I look back on bosses and sort of who I've worked really hard for and maybe who I didn't. And I've really have worked the hardest for the bosses that were also mentors and I had just tremendous respect for, not just in the office, but even watching their lives as well, how they conduct themselves at home with their families. And this is before I had a family. And it's really continued along the way, and now, truthfully, I really enjoy being a mentor, and I think people need to have that, and they need to have somebody that they can trust, and have different types of mentors. I mean, there's some mentors where you just need to vent, and they're just going to listen to it, and then there's other mentors that you're looking for feedback, like not necessarily be careful what should I do, but just kind of unfreezing you, if you will, so that you can figure out what you want to do.
I've had a number of mentors, but I would say my single biggest mentor has been my dad. He was a successful businessman and has given me, from his first advice of get out of the gate fast. That's what y'all are doing by actually getting up here early this morning. It's part of getting out of the gate fast, and has continued to be throughout my career. It's interesting now that's starting to change. My dad's getting a little older. The relationship's starting to change, so it'll be interesting to see what the next steps are there.
It's a little more difficult question for me. I don't know that there's never been really a formalized mentorship that I have had. I've had great bosses. I've always learned from them what they do, and I'm also one that observes a lot and really takes in what I see. So I have always, looked at bosses to see that. I've looked direct bosses, but then I've also looked outside of that to see where it is. And the most mentorship that I've gotten is when I've actually started my business. So it was more 10 years ago. So I would say, later on in my career. And, it's been invaluable. It's the business aspect of it more so than the human resources. I've got, had that nailed down, but it's, the business. How do you run a business? How do you run your own, the whole business with it? There's a whole lot to it. There's a lot you don't know. And, what don't you know? And ask those questions, which goes back to the curiosity and finding it out. But I think it's important to find it and find somebody in, Darren's point, different areas of your life, back to the integration as well.
Thank you all for being here. My question is, when you all were on the path to professionalism, like us students are here, how often did you guys encounter dissatisfaction with what you were doing or where you were going, and how did you overcome that?
That's a great question, because it's not easy. I mean, it isn't. You're starting off, and you don't have to have it all figured out right now. So you don't have to have this this 20-year career mapped out in your head. It's really about exploration and doing different things. One of the things is, I'll get back to directly answering your question, but one of the things that I like to see when I look at a resume of somebody that's maybe been working 5, 7, 8 years is that they've just done lots of different things, and that looks really good if you've done it at a certain company, because it shows that company has invested in you and allowed you to kind of do different things and figure out where the fit is. And so I think that's a lot of it. And so answer more directly, it is going to be tough. I mean, life is tough. You know, I mean, unfortunately, you're going to be learning that now, and business is tough, and home life is tough, and making everything balance is tough. And so I think it's just getting through the tough patches. And as Warren said, it works itself out when you're really passionate about what you're doing. So just kind of think of the tough days as you're on the pathway to find that passion. And you may not. I mean, you may be lucky and find it at 25. You'll be the 1 out of 100 that does. I'm 50 and I'm not quite sure what's next. I've been in consumer electronics. I've been in healthcare, and who knows what's next. And that's exciting too.
That is a great question with it there. And I would say to really keep your eyes open and be open to opportunities, because opportunities will present themselves, and you may look at it and say, why? What is this about? But definitely explore it to see, because I have had opportunities come up where it's like, that's not my path, that's not where I'm going with it, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions that I'd ever made to do that. So definitely keep that open for you. There will be times where you're going, why? I don't want to go to work. What's going on here? This is, a bad situation, a bad day. But listen to that and, explore it again. Is it something that I am doing today? Is it what's going on right now? Or is this not the place for me anymore? Because there are times where you're going to outgrow wherever you are, and it might become, a drudge to get somewhere. But always keep, looking out of what's going on. What's a peripheral job? What's a peripheral industry where I could transfer what I have learned to go to the next opportunity? So hope that helps.
How many of you here know what you want to do? Raise your hand, please. Really, that many? Well, I'm impressed. You have an advantage because you have a single-minded knowledge of what you want to do, and that will make the dissatisfaction. It'll be easier to overcome it because you know what you want to do, and you just got to pivot around it. If you're like me, the rest of you, who didn't know what he was going to do at this age, you're going to find a number of things. You're going to find there's no such thing as a perfect boss. Get used to it. And that someday when you are that person, remember that all the people they're working, they're thinking you ain't the perfect boss either. And then give yourself exposure. What I was fortunate to do as my first job is I had exposure to a lot of different industries. That helped because I could see a lot. I could see things that I wanted to do, and more often than not, I could see things I didn't want to do. And so when it comes to dissatisfaction, you learn, okay, don't want to do that, don't want to do that. Ooh, that looks interesting. So put yourself in a position to get exposure to a lot of things. I think that's one of the advantages. I know people that come work with us, they say, well, I may start in food and beverage, but I don't want to be in food and beverage forever. But they learn I want to be in plant, or I want to be in HR, or I want to be in finance, or I want to be in something else. Put yourself in a position, if you don't know, where you get exposure to a lot. Because your first job, you're not expected to get it right out of the chutes and stay there for the rest of your life.
Good morning. My name is Carly Cuddy. I'm both a business and psych major here. And my question for all three of you is, being that you're all in the top level of management, how do you ensure that the environment on the floor or in the office represents and embodies the company culture that you're promoting?
So we developed this over a couple of years. Because we actually had a company culture that I didn't particularly care for when I started, and we evolved and pivoted it. But it took collective and collaboration to come up with all the things that we wanted to be, right? The work hard, play hard was some of it, teamwork, other things like that. And actually one of the single best things that happened after this multi-year collaborative effort, because it's got to be collaborative. You don't just have top down. was actually a woman saying, now we got to make this, because we have about 9, 10 things, right? And nobody can remember all those things. But she said, it's got to be in an acronym. Now, when you come into healthcare, everything is acronym hell, okay? Just so you know. So it actually helped. She said, it's got to be an acronym we can understand. And we came up with STAR, service to colleagues and residents, teamwork, aiming for excellence, and doing the right thing, STAR. And you know, that has been amazing. Everybody, I think most people you ask at our communities will understand STAR. And they particularly come down to doing the right thing. So you got to make it simple. You can have big grand mission statements, but you know, short of laminating them and everybody carries them around, which can be effective, sometimes the KISS principle works. So you keep it simple, stupid, and that acronym helps. And that's been pretty good for us.
The other part where it does start from the top is if you don't have the support at the top, you don't have the modeling at the top, nothing's going to happen below that. To make sure that it happens, I would say that you really have to hold people accountable into the sense that each management member has goals, objectives that are in support of that culture, to make sure that that, you know, goes all the way down into their departments, their divisions, depending on how big the company is with it. And that's another aspect of it, along with what Warren had said. You know, and I would say it's got to be fun. If it's not fun and you're not having fun at work and it's a drudge, oh, you know, we've got to do this thing, it's not going to work. So it has to make sense for the company, it has to make sense for the business, and it really has to be, you know, permeated throughout. And I think that, you know, from the top piece of it down, it's got to be down with each member of management to make sure.
We also have an acronym actually, and it's MBWA, and that's Management by Walking Around. And it's a big part of our company culture, and that's exactly what it is. It's walking around, and for an executive, it's getting out of your office and just you know, walking through different areas of the company and talking to people. And I mean, this will sound completely silly, but it's dead serious. When I get up and use the restroom, I literally take the longest route to the restroom, and I cut through the cubicles, and I say hello to people, and you know, I keep it very, very light. Because it's also, I do understand that for folks in those positions, that sometimes it can be real daunting to have the executive walk by and that kind of thing. So I just kind of purposely try to just bring down that shield, and you know, we're all here kind of just pulling in the same direction. So I think that's a big part of it, just being out there and visible.
Good morning, thank you guys for coming. My question is open to all three of you, but specifically Darren. You mentioned in your career that you made a big move coming to Los Angeles. So I just wanted to know, like, what's some advice for someone who's planning or open to working somewhere completely foreign to them, whether it's out of state or even out of the country?
Yeah, great question, and I've learned a lot along the way. I think companies now are looking for people that are mobile, and so if you are mobile, that's going to give you a great advantage. I look back, I turned down so many opportunities to move. I worked for a big multinational company, could have gone to Europe and done a bunch of things, and for a variety of reasons, I just always said no. You know, the kids are too small or whatever. You know, looking back, it's probably one of my regrets, and I really wish I would have done some of that when I was younger. I mean, the best time to do it is now. I'm obviously a finance professional from the Washington, D.C. area. I wish I would have gone to New York and worked for a few years, and that's a great opportunity. And it's a place it's hard to raise a family there, so the ideal time to do something like that is when you're young and in your 20s. And so I think being really, really open to moving around, and it's kind of a leap of faith. I mean, you know, I don't know really why I didn't do it. I always had a reason. But at 40 years old, I grabbed the family and I promised, hey, we're just going to California for 2 or 3 years as a job assignment. We didn't sell the house. We just rented out the house. We came out to California, signed a 2-year lease on a house. And at the end of those 2 years, my wife and 2 daughters said, you know what, we like this. Let's stay. And so would have never known if we hadn't tried. And here we are, 10 years later, here we are. We bought the house that we were renting, we sold the Virginia house, and we just fly back and forth to see the family. It's a small world, it's getting smaller. It's getting smaller and smaller. So my trepidation, 20 years ago, moving away from, mom and dad and that kind of thing, it's largely gone away. I mean, there's 50 flights, probably hundreds of flights a day to Washington, D.C., but you kind of get my point. Just being open and being mobile, and I think it's great for you, and I think companies are really looking for that. Because you're a big investment for a company. I mean, people, I look at our financials, and when we're having, tougher times and expenses are kind of tough, it's all people. I mean, people are just really expensive. So you're an investment to the company. And I think the more you can do to kind of show a return on that investment, the better.
I have nothing to add.
Are there any other questions? Oh.
Good morning. This kind of goes along with the question about culture. How do each of you ensure that your employees are, one, happy, and two, fulfilling their purposes while working for you?
The easiest way to do that is communication, 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 communication. You really have to talk with your employees, let them know what's going on with the company, where you're headed, what challenges are coming up, find out where your employee wants to go, what do they want to learn, where do they want to develop with it, and what do they enjoy doing. Those are the major pieces of it, but it really boils down to communication, because if you're not talking with your employees, you have no idea what their challenges are, what their aspirations are, and they're not going to understand where you're going with your company, even within your division, or your department. So the communication is just key.
If I could add just to that, because Karen's right. I mean, just as I've observed as we've grown from one community to now 6 in California, or it'll soon be 6, my job is taking on much more of communication and doing that. Partly, how do I know they're happy? Ask. Surveys are the most formal way, and we do that annually. And that's part of the Great Places to Work survey that was mentioned earlier. I mean, you survey annually, you just keep asking. But then there's the personal ask. One of my questions, almost every time I meet with one of the top leadership heads, directors, executive directors, administrators, what can I do to help? Are there any problems? And is anybody having problems in your department? We've had people who we found out were living out of their car, so we step in to help. We have other folks with problem. I just was talking with a woman yesterday. I overheard a call. I work in an open office. I said, Katie, what are you working on? And this is a person who was, the IRS was garnishing some wages. But by the way, we found out, digging deeper, it was really a husband taking advantage of the wife situation. We're stepping in to help. Ask. That's how you help your people. Ask.
Did you? Oh, Carly's got another question.
So Warren, in your description, it specifically states that you have high resident satisfaction, but it can apply for all 3 of you. How do you measure, what are your metrics for ensuring high level of satisfaction and following up? So it's one thing to ask, but how do you follow up with those surveys?
That's a good question. The only thing worse than not doing a survey is doing a survey and then doing nothing with it. So it's fair. So the same, just like we do surveys of our colleagues and find out, what they want and their level of satisfaction. We do the same thing with residents, though we do that on a biannual basis. And we ask, and then when we get low scores, and listen, at any given time, we're in a business that's so multifaceted. As I said, we're a restaurant, we're a taxi service, we're a fix-it shop, we're a hospital. I mean, we're more things than I can count. We're never perfect on everything. Actually, we're never perfect on anything, but we're you know, you're always having a department that needs to work because it comes back to people, as Darren was saying, and not every person or leader's great. And so, you know, part of management is having to develop those people or sometimes make changes. So you ask, when you get the feedback, you create an action plan with that leader, and you sit down and say, okay, how are we going to fix that? And then you follow up on that action plan. And if either they are not able to execute or the action plan was not suitable, then you keep after it. But you gotta follow up after you ask, because people take the time to give you their feedback and you don't do anything with it. It's worse than ever having asked in the first place.
On the side of an employee survey, when you have the information there, and again, to Warren's point, if you don't communicate back and do something with it, you know, it's worse than not having the survey at all. But get the data and create focus groups to get more clarity on it, because a lot of times, you know, you may see something, you'll get the feedback, and I find this particularly with employees, you don't really understand, you know, and you may feel that there's some underlying issue there. So get the people together. They're not the people that normally work together. Maybe there's, you know, people in different countries, different states, different departments all come together and discuss and talk about those areas, you know, that you're questioning or feel that there's an underlying issue that needs to be discussed and resolved from there. The other is, because you have a survey and because you get the feedback, doesn't always mean that you're going to change anything. But if you're not going to change anything, you still need to communicate that we heard you. This was what came up on the survey. We're not going to do anything about it, and these are the reasons why. And I think that transparency is huge from, you know, management and coming down to there. That builds the credibility, the transparency, and the trust, and that's what you want, you know, from your employees with that.
Tag on really quick, and actually, I was going to say trust. It was just the survey is no good unless the employees trust management and trust HR, and it really does start there. And I've seen both sides. I've seen mostly incredible HR departments, but I've also seen HR departments where, sadly, you didn't trust going to HR, and that's a really bad formula. And I think if you ever see that, I mean, there's other avenues to try to write that, if you will. Companies have, you know, hotlines and talk to your mentor and things like that, because those things are, something like that has to be fixed in an organization. So just, if you happen to see that, just know that there's many different avenues that you have, and you should take advantage of those. And then I'll just add a quick story, and we go back to just really caring about the people, and the more open you are, you'll find the more you get back in return. And so I'll just tell you a quick real world story. About a year or two ago, I had this young person, probably around 30, and he was applying for internal positions around the company, and I was kind of throwing him into the hopper, and he wasn't getting them, and finally I was talking to, you know, the hiring managers, like, you know, why didn't so and so get the job? And they're like, you know, we sat him down about this job in whatever, purchasing, and he talked about being a stockbroker, and you know, and I heard that from like 2 or 3 people. So finally, I brought this young person in. I was really upset that people in between us hadn't talked to him, and I brought him into me, and I was like, look, I'm getting this feedback that you're kind of always talking about being a stockbroker. It's like, I don't have that job, but I'm happy to help you get that job, and literally I encouraged him, you know, find a recruiter, do your resume, and go look for that job as a stockbroker, and I'll write you the recommendation. And I did, and it was really perfect. And so don't be afraid to really let yourself out there, because I think you'll get a lot in return if you do.
Okay, we're going to have a closing question. We have about 7 more minutes. Since many of you will be walking over to the career fair shortly, I thought the closing question could be, what is a top interview question you would ask entry-level applicants, and what kind of answer would you be looking for in their response?
Well, I already gave away the store. So what I'm going to instead do is say that I believe we actually have one of those tables out there. And so if anybody's looking, you can get firsthand experience with whatever questions they'll ask by going and talking to Christy at one of our tables there. We have a voracious appetite for talent. We are opening 2 new retirement communities this year, and we're looking for smart people who, want to get exposure to the hospitality and nursing industry, and would welcome you to come over.
The top interview question that I always ask is, what piqued your interest in this job? And the reason I emphasize this job is because many times I want to know, and what I'm expecting back is that the person understands what job they're applying for, what are the responsibilities, and what are the qualifications of the job. That, again, would then lead into the company. And have they done their research on the company? Is it the company that's piquing their interest to do this? They've been, tracking the company, following the company, or is this, a career move for them? Get exposure to where they have, and complement, the education that they've had. But I really want to make sure that the person really understands the position that they're applying for and what the responsibilities are with that job.
As I said earlier, on paper, you're going to look the same right now, and but there's absolutely something unique about each and every one of you, and so in the interview, you're going to want to really convey that, and the way I look for that is just to open up with a very open question. What interests you? What are you interested in? What are you curious about? And just get the interviewee speaking. So as I reflected on that story of interviewing with my boss, who literally had no questions for me, be prepared for that. I mean, be prepared to lead the conversation. And so if you do that, I think the rest will come easy. But there's absolutely something unique about all of you, and it could be, just and the further the further is away from your particular career interest, almost like the better, if you will. So if you could be a science major, and you're like, really, I love art history, and this is why I love art history. And to me, like, I just sit back and I just soak that in when an interviewee starts talking about things like that.
Thank you very much. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.